Hi, welcome to this Open Security Summit session in November 2021, where Luis is going to walk us through a very, very important topic on basically on cooking, his term, the perfect React Docker container, where we're going to be looking at a lot of different things on how to really make sure that when a team starts to code a React project, it's really nicely and secure, but also how existing teams can make sure that they have a really great Docker environment that helps to develop that secure React application. Luis, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you nod or confirm that you're listening to me, just to make sure that I'm not in mute?
Yeah, all is good. I see your presentation and your video and your.
Thank you very much. So let's get started. So this is me. I'm Luis Servin. I'm a cybersecurity architect. And you can find me pretty much everywhere with the same handle, LF Servin for my names. And these beautiful slide templates I took from Slides Carnival, Common Creative license. And well, I unfortunately didn't find any decent pictures of me in the kitchen, so I took one while grilling. It's not really the same thing, but it's close enough. So what are we gonna do today? We are gonna create delicious layers of leaky abstractions that will melt your mouth. We have carefully crafted layers upon layers upon layers of free and open source components, concepts, and things, and we will spice that with our handcrafted code. So vulnerabilities will be perhaps too many, so let's get started. Like every good kitchen dish, we need great base ingredients. So we will start with Node.js, build upon Node.js to create a React.js application. And then we will try to put all of that inside of a nice Tupperware, inside of a nice container, and send it to production. As spices, we will be using a pinch of high, critical, medium vulnerabilities in dependencies from React, from Node, or from the base images. And as salt, we can use our own vulnerabilities we add to the code. So as a personal touch, you can choose a package manager from the different options, and you can choose among a series of base images to better suit your taste for spiciness. So without further ado, let's get going. So let's get started with Node. Node.js is a JavaScript runtime for the backend. And these are the versions that they have in at least the wiki page or even their project page, I don't remember. So the current version is 16, but as usually happens, this is too new. Not all packages have been merged. So probably the best option right now is 14. Sorry about that. Because that will have the most support, at least for React. I think some things break if you start using 16. Now, there is one famous NPM registry. NPM does not stand for Node Package Manager, but from some very obscure Linux thing. I don't even bother with it. And there is a newer package manager called Yarn, and Yarn offers pretty much the same experience as NPM, except it was made for performance and security. So I know every single example out there uses NPM. I would advise you not to use NPM and rather use Yarn. But of course, it's your dish. You choose what to use, right? Node.js is fantastic. It has had lots of moments of fame in the recent past. Among them, the day the internet broke in 2016, you might remember, there was a naming dispute between someone creating LeftPath and a commercial company, and out of spite, this person removed the package from the library. And since so many sites depended on this indirectly, they started breaking. And basically, NPM had to republish this directory and change the rules on whether you could retire packages. In July 2018, ESLint scope was and had a key stealer embedded. In November 2018, event stream added a new dependency, and this latter dependency was a Bitcoin stealer. Last year, EasePromise caused a lot of serverless apps outages, and just a few weeks ago, at the beginning of this month, Koa and RC were laced with password sealing malware. So what is the deal with Node.js? Why don't we hear that in every other package out there? And I would say perhaps the problem lies in this beautiful graph from SNCC. NPM, you might pull a few packages into your package, but these packages will pull packages which will in turn pull packages, which will in turn pull packages. And a typical React app starts with something like 8 packages that you need. And these 8 packages pull in 1,600 packages. And I mean 1,600 packages, not 16 packages. So how do we keep track of what we need? In a file called package.json, we insert the blue things, those that we really need, these direct dependencies that we have. Now, the versions of the packages based on the package manager that you're using will be stored in a log file. And this log file is important because if you have been testing against a log file, against a version of something, and then you go and put and run yarn install or npm install in a container, chances are a different version might be installed. And if a different version is installed than the one you tested, it's not non-deterministic. You don't know if everything will work. And this brings us to something that is very peculiar in the Node environment, which is this dependency dimension. So as I said here, the first dimension is that you have direct dependencies and indirect dependencies. The second dimension, which is not visible here, is how many of these indirect dependencies do you need to compile your code or transpile your code, right? And which I'll come to that right away. And which ones do you need when you're running your code in production? And the last one is you have your dependency path, your dependency tree, you have what you think you have on disk, on memory versus what you have on disk in dependencies. So it's not trivial to manage dependencies in Node, and it's not helping at all. So how do you measure how spicy your React application is? So for chilies, I know there is an international measure of spiciness. How spicy is your chili based on an international scala? So Yarn audit will let you know which vulnerabilities you have in your dependencies. Yarn check will look for problems within your dependencies, and Yarn list will show you the list of dependencies. So, time for a small demo. Give me a second. Okay, so I'll try to make my screen. I'm not sure if that's too much, but it should be readable, right? So I will create an app. So if the gods of the demo are with me, this will not fail in my face, and I will not make the shame myself of this presentation. So I will run npx, which means download from the Node package repository this Node module, run it, and delete it. I don't want to keep it around. I always want to use the latest version of it. And it will create an application called Open Security Summit. So if I click on enter, we see it runs. We see it starts resolving packages. So we see it's pulling things, fetching packages, and it's starts warning me that I am missing for React scripts a TypeScript between 2.8 and 3.7. And let's see, what else do we get? I think I have to hit enter. And now we have it. So my current version of Yarn is out of date. It's fetching, testing. So pretty easy, right? I managed to get it to run.
Luis, why are you doing this? So one of the questions we already got is why Yarn then NPM?
Why
Can you just-
Yarn and not NPM?
Yeah, can you just
That's the
expand a
question.
little bit the differences, between the security advantages of Yarn versus NPM?
I could point you to a few articles. Oh, I missed the chat window. Here it is. Okay, rather than num. I like that. Yarn is not necessarily performing more security assessment, but Yarn is made to be deterministic. Yarn is was made to be faster because it caches a lot of the downloads, of the packages it downloads, which speeds up when you do repetitive tasks. It has a few, and it downloads in parallel. So if you're building containers and you take 5 or 8 minutes to build a container, would you rather have to wait 8 minutes to build a container or 2 or 3 minutes? I'm more of the kind of person who wants to wait 2 or 3 minutes. I wonder if Yarn performs further security of packages, scanning, malware, typo squatting. I think NPM audit and Yarn audit are very similar. So just to show the output of this, right? So it's telling me I have something. If I remember correctly, Yarn start will fail on this computer for some obscure reason. Oh, Yarn build, first of all. Oh, of course not. Open Security Summit. Yes, now. Yarn start. Does it run? For some obscure reason, it doesn't work on port 3000 for some reason. I just don't understand. Give me a second, but I think I usually run it using serve. Give me a second. Yarn in serve build. Oh, I have no build. Yarn build. So what just happened here? By using Yarn build or npm run build, I think the command is the same. There is a process called transpilation. I will get into that right away. And the point is, it will build static JavaScript and cascading style sheets to be served. So I don't really need the node environment to serve the content. Once it's transpiled, I need basically a static web server. So you even see here, so it's ready to be served, and you may serve it with a static server, and it tells me to serve it like this. So I can do basically yarn bin serve build. Okay, and 5000 is working. So give me a second, local host. Give me a second, 5000. And last time I tried this, it worked. So it is running. Come on, help me. So this is it. So this is the magnificent React application. So for such a simple thing, there shouldn't be much trouble, right? It should be okay to do this. But guess what? If I run yarn audit here, let me stop this thing. it throws right away 96 vulnerabilities found. And the reaction I get from pretty much every single developer I have worked with when this topic arises is that one there. I don't know if you have ever had chili in your life, or a hot pepper, as they're called in English. You know how it feels, right? It basically burns. And if it's too strong, you don't even know what to do. You don't know where to start. You want just to have water. And of course, we know water is not the right thing. So let's take a step back. So again, React is a transpile language. We will take our JSX files, our TSX files for TypeScript, our ES6 files, and convert them to native static JavaScript. So pretty much a chemical process, if you want, just like when cooking a soup, right? You put all of these disjoint elements, and what you get is not what you got in. So everything mixes and mingles, and it's impossible to separate them and their taste anymore from the rest. So this is what's going on, right? So TypeScript, ESScript, React script is packaged by Babel and Webpack, by Webpack and Babel and SAS for the cascading style sheets into static JavaScript files. This is what I did when I typed build. So if you have ever had the problem of being of eating very spicy food, drink milk, drink yogurt, drink something that's not water. Water puts capsaicin all over your mouth and it burns. Milk is the better thing to tame it. So to tame the spiciness, let's rethink again what we're doing. So we have dependency dimensions, right? We have direct and indirect dependencies, runtime and build time dependencies. So the first thing as security people that we say is, why don't you upgrade? Right? Let's do that, Yarn upgrade. And we start getting some warnings. And at this point, I usually start like having stomachache. This package will no longer receive updates. Oh God, that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Chokidar will break on node 14. Upgrade to Chokidar with 15 times less dependencies. I suppose that's a good thing. I will break on node 14 again. Okay, fantastic. Oh, there's more to come. Oh, fantastic. So, all right, that's a bunch of, I don't even know how longer can I keep on going, or whether my buffer will stop before I get to the top of it. And I get a lot of errors, right? Warnings, missing dependencies. But did I improve anything? Yay, 27, right? 27 is better than 96. So I'll continue with that. So give me just a second. So one thing that we will notice right away is that many of the problems are dependencies of React scripts. Now, why do we need React scripts? What does React scripts do? Does anyone know in the audience? Okay, React script is something that helps me build my React application. So React script is something left over by Create React App. And the people working in the React project know this. And they even have published a couple of interesting blog posts and GitHub, what is it? GitHub vulnerabilities or whatever you call them, issues. So these are the links to both. So when I publish the slides, you can access them. And basically, the main point is Yarn audit for front-end design is broken. It doesn't really work because a lot of the dependencies we use are used to build the application, but they're never in production. So we need them. We do not need them to run our application. So that's the first problem, right? So there are things in one dimension that we don't need in production. And the second problem is when we actually need a vulnerable package in production and we don't have a fix for that. So these are two very different vulnerabilities. So what should we do in every case? So let's see. We have tried updating, and we have seen that many of these dependencies are React dependencies. So how can I fix this? So I open my package JSON and I would see that I have dependencies and browsers list and development and I don't know what else, right? So do I need testing libraries in my production environment? No. Do I need React scripts in my production environment? No. Okay, so how about I create development dependencies? So dev dependencies, check, comma. So that's valid JSON. And then I basically go and okay, that seems fine. So let's try again. So what happened? I have reduced my runtime dependencies. So I need React. I need the React domain object model, and I need web vitals, but everything else I don't need. So let's get out of here. Yarn audit groups. So I want to know how many vulnerabilities I have in my dependencies. None. How many vulnerabilities do I have in dev dependencies? 27. So the vulnerabilities are still there. Now, the vulnerabilities are no longer in what I will call the production ready React JS. So remember we were having a lot of dependencies being pulled in and we had a bunch of warnings, right? So this is garlic. If you have ever had garlic too long in the frying pan, you know it turns very bitter. So for the bitter aftertaste, even though we got rid of the vulnerabilities, we might have dependency requirements that will clash. And we might be even missing dependencies. So how do we know? Let's take a look at yarn check to help us with it. Yarn check. One error. Oops. Okay. So what is it telling us? I found 6 errors and I found 33 warnings. All right. So what are the errors? Babel jest is not installed. Okay, so Babel preset jest is not installed. So Babel jest is complaining because Babel preset jest is not installed. Preset jest is complaining because Babel preset current node syntax is not installed. And current syntax is complaining that Babel plugin syntax begin and import meta are not installed. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plugin transform React is complaining that the plugin syntax JSX is not installed. JSX, wait just a second. So now, these are my JSX files, and this is Babel, and Babel is taking the JSX files, transpiling them into vanilla JavaScript, and Webpack will compress it. Is it a good thing for Babel to have the syntax for these files? Maybe. What could happen? I have no idea, but probably unexpected things that have nothing to do with my code, but with something in the process, which is like black magic. All right. So let's do something about it. So it is complaining. I have already copied here the comment. Let me see if I can get it from the source file. Let's see if that works. So basically what I will do is say yarn add to my dependencies, to my development dependencies. So this big D is adding to my development dependencies. And what will I be adding? So let me move that a little bit farther up so that you can actually, oh, but you cannot see it like that. Okay. Yarn add -D. And what will I be adding? Well, how about preset jest and node syntax and Babel big int and Babel import meta and Babel plugin syntax JX, right? So those are the kind of things that I would like to import. So let's go for it. So Babel preset jest, check. Babel preset node syntax, check. Now I add Babel big int and I add Babel meta. No, wrong one. Babel meta. And there was another one up here. Babel syntax JSX. And there was a sixth one. What was the sixth one? React scripts does not satisfy found match of, oh God, I don't want to bother with that right now. So let's get started. Okay, I still get, now I get a lot of things, right? Now I have unmet peer dependencies. So what is a peer dependency? Anyone knows what a peer dependency is? So peer dependencies are those that are not installed by default. Why? Because one might point to the other and then you get cyclical dependencies. And to avoid that, you list them as peer dependencies. So you need to take care of installing any peer dependencies not in the package JSON. All right, so it seems that we need Babel core and testing library DOM. So I will just add them again to my, oops, sorry about that. So I will just add them again to my file. Okay, let's see, yarn add those files. So I'm adding Babel core. I mean, and I haven't written a single line of code, right? This is the absolutely insane thing about JavaScript is I haven't even written a single line of code, and I already have this technical debt to take care of, at least to understand and make sure that every single developer understands. So have we improved? Okay, so we have 1 error and 31 warnings. All right. It's getting late. So we will notice that there's a lot of can be deduped, can be deduped, can be deduped, can be deduped. Yarn version 1 does not deduplicate, but Yarn version 2 has it by default. I haven't yet tried to use Yarn version 2, so I will basically use Yarn version 1. So I will just basically do what is there. So Yarn deduplicate. I will then run a deduplicate and fewer, so it will reduce the number of duplicate entries. And now I do need to do a yarn install to make sure that everything is reset. And I mean, React is asking for TypeScript. Normally I would install it. For the sake of the exercise, I will just avoid it right now. Yarn check. So have we improved in any measurable way? Yes. So we went from, I don't know how many, but from a lot to just 13 warnings and 1 error. And the warnings are deduped. So some things could not be deduped. So we can ignore all of them. And now we have here something telling us that typefest is not able to be resolved. And the question is, have we improved at all with our dev dependencies? And the question is, no, we haven't. So I tried updating, I tried playing nice. I have the nuclear option. And the nuclear option, we could force glove parent and ANSI-HTML and Immer to be the patch version, the newer version. So here we know that they have been patched. But on the other hand, these things will be running only in the stage in the container in which I build the container. They will not affect my production JavaScript. Can I live with them? It depends a little bit, right? What is the worst thing that could happen? Someone does in your CI, which I suppose has some sort of watchdog, and if the container doesn't build after half an hour, it gets killed and it's not critical. So to be honest, I could live with this. There's the nuclear option of forcing them. I think it's resolutions, is it? I think it's resolutions, but that might be too heavy-handed. Yes, it's resolution. So I'll take Immer as an example. And I'll put version 906 and bigger. Okay, so I'll just to show that it can be fixed. So nvim package JSON. So here I add resolutions, comma. No, it's valid JSON. And I will add Immer. Caret version. Yarn install. So now we see Immer 9.0.6 was installed. If I do a yarn audit, dev dependencies, I should have at least, it's now 25, right? I had 27, now it's 25. I fixed it, but if I check in yarn check, now for everyone I fix here, we will have someone complaining here that Immer is not in the right version that they expected it to be. I'm not sure what's worse, to risk incorrect builds or to fix the vulnerabilities just for the sake of building them. Again, this is code that should never be available in production, but we'll get to that. Last thing that we could do is to and now I should be able to run without errors in yarn check.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think so. It's just is I thought it was also me. I'm gonna just close the recording. Here we're back. Luis had a bit of an issue with his internet, but he's back now. So over to you.
So, yeah, sorry about this. My router decided not to give me internet anymore. So I'm on my phone right now. So far, we have only been able to cover React itself. So we haven't been able to containerize it and to look at the vulnerabilities that we build into our containers themselves, right? So this is just getting to fly with React, and we not even have yet a single line of code of our own. This is just create React app. So it's not trivial. I mean, it's an architectural decision to use React, Angular, or any other UI. It's what we're doing. Everyone is doing some sort of single page application with an API. So that's the state of the current internet web development. There's nothing to do about it. So we need to learn how to cope with it. And I hope so far it was instructive on how to do it. I have no idea why I'm not connected. I'm terribly sorry about that.
But are there already like Docker Hub and Docker versions, right? That have already done this, right? Like where can we download? Like this. The good news, well, at least one.
There's no good news.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge here, and this is what was coming, right? So the biggest challenge is now Docker. You want certain things from your Docker installation. So you want it to be, give me a second. So you want your Docker installation to present certain security objectives, I call them. Let me see if I can change my camera. I mean, it's presenting for the purists, but it's stop video share. No, not stop video, but change the camera, that one. So this is, sorry about this, but it's the only way I have right now to present it.
That's my way of doing it.
I'm terribly sorry. No, the quality is not great, but it's a hack. It's my McKeever hack, right? So what I call minimal viable security objectives. So have a minimal attack surface, have deterministic builds, apply least privilege, don't store secrets in the container ever, don't pass secrets as environment variables when running, observe Docker file best practices, make sure you know where your packages are coming and that they're from good places, and don't push containers with vulnerabilities into production. So this is what I wanted to show you. And one thing that really scares me is, I think the other camera was better. Give me a second. Yeah, there it is. I don't know why this is so broken. So if you download Node 14 and run Trivia on it, it will show you a staggering 2,690 vulnerabilities. 743 high and 1 critical vulnerability. So the base image you're starting with, if you use Node 14, is horrible. Now, if you use Alpine, you get 1/10 of the size and 0 vulnerability. So if you had to choose, which one would you choose? I would choose this one, right? Alpine. And when you start doing your Docker file, you will see that this is the default Node.js example you will find in the Node.js website for Dockerizing a Node.js application. I have enhanced it by adding something I have found very often, which is setting strict SSL to false. Why? Because we work in my business environment behind a Zscaler, a proxy, an intercepting proxy. So because the Zscaler root certificate is not known to NPM, it will just abort downloading and no one can get anything built and everyone is unhappy. And then the easiest thing to do is to Stack Overflow this problem, and the first solution always is to turn it off. So that's a wrong way to solve it, right? So in this very small file, you will see I am using Alpine. There's a build argument. Someone is using strict SSL. So there are a series of vulnerabilities here. So I mapped that to the minimal viable requirements, right? So Node Alpine is already reducing the attack surface. Now, because I have a build command without a default value, I might not be having deterministic builds. So if I don't give this argument a default value, it will probably don't do anything, don't build my application. I will not be able to see what happens with it. Because I am setting strict SSL to false, I cannot assure the provenance of my components. And because I am starting command and never use the user, I am starting with root rights on the container and probably on the host. So is this a container you would put in production? I wouldn't. And here the message is basically chill, take a deep breath, and fix one thing at a time. So how do we fix the problems we just saw? Use an image that is not latest. By doing this, we're not fixing the Node version. So it will probably be Node 16. Alpine could be 3.14 or 3.12 or 3 point something else. Build command should have a default value. By using Alpine, I'm already doing a smaller base image than just plain Node, because Node is an Ubuntu image. Here we will see that we have npm install, npm, and this is where I would use a multi-stage build. So I would separate this part above from the actual serving. So I would separate this and I would use semgrep and Trivi to look at this file and find problems. So semgrep will help me find problems in my Docker file definition, and Trivi will help me find vulnerabilities in the build container. Docker ignore will help me keep files I don't want out of my container. For example, node modules or directories, git ignore files, all of that. And if you're using secrets, mount them into the container image. So those are basically the best things you could do. I wanted to do a practical presentation of how to fix this, but with one hand on my phone, it will be incredibly hard. So I'm sorry to disappoint you in that sense. I will make sure that the slides for publication have this an enhancement, but I promise I had it ready to be working with you, but with one hand, I cannot even type. So in lieu that I have no internet for the time being, except for my phone, I will have to conclude the presentation here, and I'm open for any questions, any comments that you might have.
So I think my question was going to ask before. So we already published a Docker version and a recipe, right? Basically that we, if I'm in a way that you're showing in this session why we need, right, that separate build, right? So my question is where can we find that separate build and that separate Docker image that already contains like zero or minimal vulnerabilities and a good setup?
I can show you. Give me a second. I just need to put my phone on the floor. The answer is I haven't published it yet, so I will publish it to my personal repo and then see how to link it to the OpenSec Summit GitHub, because I think that's a great blueprint to start with. So if I I need both hands to type, so please excuse. Oh, I have this thing. So let me see if I can use this thing. I don't want to drop water on my keyboard. Give me just a second.
Because I think also it's important to put that as a GitHub action, right? Because you should be able to build this with a GitHub action, right? So
certainly, but the Docker file definition is not a GitHub action.
Yeah,
so
but what you do is
you have to bring into it.
Yeah, but what you do is you build the Docker image from the GitHub action, right? So and then we can publish. We can actually show that pipeline going, right? And we can run GitHub Access if you want on a Open Security Summit Docker account. So GitHub account, right? Because I think it's I feel that maybe the session that you want to do in the next summit is actually one that, it's almost say this one shows why this is a problem, so we can use these ones as a reference. I think it would be good to show, almost like you start with the base image, right? And then we just maybe add some stuff on top of it. But we say this is where you start. This is how you use that particular build.
Yeah. So let me see if I can. Yeah, I can tilt it so that we have no reflection, and I can use this thing. So I take it off the stand. Yeah. So basically, I have created this file, and I can walk you through it for a second. If you bear with me, where's my mouse? Here's my mouse. So and this is a relatively complex one, because developers being developers sometimes need to log into the containers to do development stuff. On the other hand, in production, I don't want anyone close to my container, right? I don't want anyone being even able to log into the container. I want to use a rootless and a distroless environment for that. So I start from a node Alpine. I still have to hash to add the hash sum to make sure that it's always the same image. And you will see here some arguments and environment variables. So what is happening here is I give the possibility when building the container of passing arguments. So you could say this is a container that will be built for production, which is the default, or which will be built for development environment. And based on that, something happens, and then you could have different build commands, for example, linting or testing or building. So the default value is build. And there's some magic happening, because based on whether you want to run it on your local computer or somewhere else, you would use this or localhost. So this is some magic happening right there. So in the first stage, in the base, I copy the root certificates from my computer there, so that Node and every other program can find them. And there's no need to do black magic, right? So this is something that you need to update every now and then, because the root CA certificates of the internet change every now and then. And then from this space, if I am in a local environment, by using these intermediate stages, local based or production based, and they depend on the production environment, you will see that I am able to install for development. I don't care which version is installed of the log files of the packages, but for production, I want to install exactly the ones that I have tested to be able to have repeatable outputs.
Yeah.
And now I will build, so based on the argument I passed in the beginning, it will choose by the magic of multi-stage Docker containers, either to run production or local days. So in this case, if it's a production environment, it will install only the exact versions in the frozen log file. And then I do the magic with set of substituting this variable in the file for whatever I pass here. And then it will run the build command. So in both cases, it will build the run command. And then remember, I have static JavaScript files. Static JavaScript files. So what do I need? I actually need to serve static files. So for development, it's okay to use serve, but serve has a lot of vulnerabilities. Whereas for Nginx, I was testing with containerless Nginx. Was it container? Yeah, containerless. So Nginx 1.0 without it should be distroless, not containerless. So it's basically just Nginx, and you own all the files you copy. You have to tell Nginx that you will be routing using the magic in React, and then you serve it from port 8080, and that's it. So it's a lot more complex than the other one, but this one has this special loop in which the flow basically interrupts and goes from one to the other, right? So you go from a starting point into either production or development branches, build things in a different way, install things and serve things in a different way. So from one Docker file, I can create two different containers, one which is 15 megabytes in size, the Nginx one, or 50, I don't know, and one which is hundreds of megabytes in size because it's based on Alpine. It's still better than being based on Ubuntu, which is 900 megabytes in size. So this is something that I could simplify, maybe get rid of the certificates since it's not something that everyone needs, and publish in GitHub and on the Open Security Summit GitHub as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a great thing for us to do, right? Let's do that. So let me know what's needed, right? Let's follow up on the Slack channel, right? Let's know what's needed, and we basically have an environment. We can even look at sending us some stuff on AWS. But I think with GitHub Actions, you should be able to do most of what you need, right, in there, right? And in fact, it's interesting because one of the things that I'm thinking about is to add some React to the main Open Security Summit website, so we can even use this to make sure that it's actually done properly, right? So
that the last thing missing here is to configure Nginx to serve the content security policy and the other security headers.
Yep.
So that's the only missing link in this in this file, because in that way you make sure that regardless of what the developer did, the React conf, the Nginx conf is already serving the appropriate security headers, so that you pass with flying grade the security headers.com check or whatever you want to do, right?
Yep.
And this is something that you can verify in your CI with SAP proxy.
Yeah, that actually would be cool, actually, to add another integration with something verification built in. Now, have you run, for example, other tools like Snake and other testing tools on that final build just to confirm? I know you run the default.
I run Trivy. I don't have Snake in the office, so I'm using Trivy, which is, I have no idea how much better or how much worse, but it is noisy enough to inform me that there are vulnerabilities in the container. So by doing this, since you split your development time, your build time dependencies, React scripts, and all its vulnerable dependencies from the production dependencies, you get clean builds. And by using only Nginx container, which is the minimal Nginx installation that you can get, you reduce it even further because you just have a few megabytes inside. So deploying it, storing it is a lot cheaper than keeping 900 megabytes.
Cool. All right. Sounds good, man. Let's do that for the next session, and let's start publishing, and then let's continue talking on the Summit Slack environment, and we'll take it from there.
That's it.
Thank
you very much.
Good stuff.